Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. We talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm Ernst Jeffrey. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. The national championship game is right around the corner. Everybody is highly anticipating this matchup, especially if you are a Michigan or a Washington fan. Washington hasn't won the national title since 1991. Michigan hasn't won it since 1997. And a lot of people feel that this is the best opportunity for both of these teams to win a national title because Washington is going to the Big Ten. It's going to be a lot harder for them to win in the future. In Michigan, Jim Harbaugh might leave if they win a national title. And even if they don't, he might leave for the NFL. So we'll have to see. Maybe he'll stay. Plus, you're going to have a 12-team playoff in the future. You only had a 4-team playoff this year for the final time. So whoever wins this game, it will be a prime opportunity and possibly their best opportunity to win a national title for a very long time. Me and WillND, we preview and predict the national championship game, whether we think that Michael Penix and Kalen Deboer, that dynamic duo, will be able to help lead the Washington Huskies to a national title win over the Michigan Wolverines as an underdog, or do we believe that the favorites in Michigan will be able to knock off the Washington Huskies and J.J. McCarthy and all those players that decided to come back for this extra year for Jim Harbaugh? They'll be able to end their season with the national title win and achieve all that they set out to do. But whoever wins this game, it should be a fantastic game, and I'm sure everybody can't wait to see what happens.
Before we start to talk about the national championship game, I will share this. Kalen Deboer expects Dylan Johnson to be ready for the championship game.
That's good news. That's great news. Still shouldn't have run him, though. Still shouldn't have had that play late in that game like that. Jay said people are sleeping on Washington. My thing real quick on that before we get into the game, like you guys' comments are great. I'm loving the discussion. This is awesome. But when you're talking about Washington, I never slept on Washington ever because they literally have Michael Penix, who played in Indiana. Kalen Deboer was at Indiana. Of course. Like, I'm all in on Michael Penix. You know, I believed in him the whole time when no one did. When no one thought he was any good. I believed in Michael Penix before the pylon in Penn State. I believed in him in 2019 when he played, and he was slinging it against Michigan State in 2019 in Virginia, and he looked great. Like, I believed in him the entire time. And I knew when he went out to Washington, Kalen Deboer, that it was going to work. As long as he stayed healthy, which he has, he was going to be great because they were going to protect him better than IU. He's not going to be rushed as much as he was in the Big Ten. And I knew Kalen Deboer was going to have a great offense. And all that's happened. Did I ever think they were going to maybe be this good? No, but I thought they'd win 10, 11 games with him. But the thing is that the reason why people, I guess you would say, are sleeping on him is just the fact that Washington has won all of their last 10 games by 10 points or less, including beating Stanford and Washington State and Arizona State. Those are bad teams. They barely beat those teams. And I know Alabama barely beat Auburn. I know Michigan barely beat Maryland. I know Texas barely beat Houston and TCU. But still, people are going to give more of a leeway with those teams because it's Michigan, Texas, and Bama, because it's Washington and you're barely beat those teams. Like, well, Washington's not that good. I picked Oregon both times. I thought Oregon was better than Washington, but Washington beat them both times, barely. And I'm glad that they did. Glad for Michael Penix. I wanted him to win the Heisman, even though Jaden Daniels definitely deserved it, but I'm glad, I wanted Penix to win because I thought that with him winning and, like I said, him being in Indiana, all this storyline is great. But, yeah, I never slept on him once. I mean, Washington's a great football team, but overall, arguably, based off their team and comparing them to the other three, Washington is not as good as those teams, but they have enough talent, especially on offense, that's why they're able to somehow win, and they've got the coach and the belief. That's why they're here.
All right. So you're definitely picking Michigan?
I don't know, to be honest, even right now. I mean, looking at this game, like, Michigan's a better team. Texas was the better team than Washington, but I believe Washington could win because, like you said, Texas's secondary was weak. And Washington has that elite passing attack. And plus, Texas hasn't been able to prove that they could win at that stage. Michigan hadn't done it either. That's why I picked Alabama. But Michigan finally did it. They found a way, even though it took a lot of sloppy play both ways. And Michigan found a way late to win. But Michigan's a better team than Washington. Moose says Michigan most complete team in college football. I mean, it's debatable. Oregon, Georgia, it's debatable. Michigan's fantastic, but it's debatable. Who would you say is most complete team? Moose is giving us great questions here because based off his statements that you can ask, who do you think is most complete team?
On paper, it's Georgia, but they aren't playing like it. I mean, they didn't play well against Bama.
They've barely lost. They barely lost. Like, if Georgia wins that game.
I think Georgia would have won if they would have done the same game plan that Michigan did. Just blitzing Milroe. But they went zone, dumb, and I don't know what Glenn Schumann. I think he's a good D coordinator for Georgia. But I didn't know what the heck he was doing, not sending more guys after Milroe, and he let Milroe just run to victory.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense. I mean, that's a great point. The funny thing, is when Milroe fumbled the football, there was no one even around him. He just lost the ball. Like that was the funniest thing about that fumble, is there was it wasn't pressured. Moose says Michigan's been destroying team all year. I mean, the thing is the problem with statements like that, it's not necessarily that you're wrong, Moose, but it's because you have a bias. You believe Michigan's the best team in football. You believe they're the most complete team in football because you're a fan of the team. And you have an argument. But, if you were a Texas fan, per se, you would probably say that Michigan could be the best team in the sport. Or they could be the most complete team in the sport. Or it could be Georgia, or it could be Oregon. That's my thought processing, because, yes, I like Alabama. Yes, I like Indiana, but I'm also just a guy that looks at all these teams and compares them, and there's no definitive answer. There's no bias for me. I know you watch all kinds of games, but Michigan is not definitively the most complete team in college football. They're not definitively the best team in college football. They're really good, but they're not definitively the best. Georgia and Oregon and some of these other teams are right there. And probably Georgia's better than Michigan. Georgia is better than Michigan. It's not. I'll take that back. Georgia is better than Michigan. Georgia blew it against Alabama, but Georgia's the better football team than Michigan. They're better than Alabama. Georgia probably was the best team in college football, but they didn't get there because of the fact that they lost. Now you're going to have a 12-team playoff, so Georgia would be in it. And then you'd see what would happen possibly. So I don't know. I mean, Michigan can win it all not being the best team. They don't even have to be the best team in college football to win, because that's not how it works. The best team doesn't always win. That's why Washington beat Texas. That's why Washington beat Oregon. Washington was not as good as those teams, but they won. That's how it works. That's why you play the games. The better team doesn't always win. So, yes, Washington can win this game. Michigan's favored by 4.5, but Washington can win this game. And then you could still say, Moose, that Michigan's the most complete team. You could still say Michigan is the best team if you wanted to, but Washington beat them if they did. So that's how this thing works. The best team can lose. I think that's like the argument here. So, I mean, I know I'm just kind of just saying a bunch of stuff based off your point, but I know you're going to think they're the best anyway, and you have every right to think that, Moose, but I'm just explaining why it's not definitive. It's based off other things. But I'm going to let you pick first, Will, because, like I said, this is actually a tough game to pick because of the fact Washington's been on a mission, and I think they can win, but it's going to be interesting.
I'm picking Washington to win this game. I know this is going to fire up Moose, but let me explain. Michigan's D-line did get 6 sacks on Jalen Milroe, but Washington had the Joe Moore winning offensive line, the best offensive line in college football. I'm going to say they get 2 sacks on Penix. I think they get 2 sacks on him, and I just think Michigan does have a great secondary. But I don't know, man. I just think that these Washington receivers they make crazy play after crazy play, and I think they'll continue. And I think that Washington's defense, it wasn't healthy all year. That's part of the reason why they're in so many close games, because besides the Arizona State game, which is bad, they played bad in that game. That was their Auburn, New Mexico State game, although they still won. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go with the Huskies to beat the Wolverines. I'll go 38-31 Huskies. Also, I think that Washington's defense, they'll definitely get some negative plays like they did against Texas to keep Michigan behind the chain, and that's how they'll get enough stops.
Yeah, Moose, Georgia better than Michigan is debatable. You say Oregon's better than Michigan, gonna laugh. Oregon, I'm saying most complete team. I didn't say they were better. You said most complete team. Oregon had both sides of the ball. Defense was good, offense was good. That's the point. But you said Georgia better than Michigan. Can we play the transitive property? The transitive property doesn't exist. That's fake. It doesn't work. Because if you believe in the transitive property, because I know Bama beat Georgia, that doesn't matter. Because if New Mexico State beat Auburn, And if Auburn beat Alabama, then you can't say that New Mexico State's better than Alabama. It doesn't work that way because the transitive property, Auburn lost to New Mexico State, but they beat Bama. That doesn't work that way. The transitive property never works. And I know that you can say, well, it works against teams that are comparable, but it still doesn't work because Georgia was this close to beating Bama. But Georgia played better games. I mean, for example, like you talk about Kentucky, like Georgia blitzed Kentucky to death. But what if like Ohio State or Michigan played Kentucky and they only won by like 15 or 20 instead of Georgia beating them by 45, 50? Then we could say Georgia's better because they beat them by more. The transitive property stuff, I don't believe the transitive property. That is like the most fake thing in sports. You can't compare results all the time. They work sometimes, but it doesn't always work. You have to have a lot of examples for that to matter. To your point, Will, Washington is fantastic. I mean, they are. They are a fantastic team. But the talent discrepancy is still large. Michigan is a more talented team overall. They've got better players. They got more guys that are going to be playing on Sunday. But the thing is that when you look at Michigan, the side of the ball that's going to win this game, in my opinion, is Michigan has to score enough. Because Washington, to me, is going to score. I know Michigan's defense is elite. It's elite. It's fantastic. They got great studs all over the defense. But Washington's going to score. They got too many offensive players that are fantastic. They're going to score. And Texas has a good D-line, and they didn't get to Penix enough. In Michigan's D-line, they have probably more talent, but still, like, can they get to Penix? Because if they don't get to Penix consistently, then it's going to be very difficult for Michigan to be able to win because Washington's going to pick them apart, even though Michigan's secondary is good. But you talk about Rome Odunze, Jalen Polk, McMillan. Those guys are insane. They're all good. And Dylan Johnson, the fact he's going to be able to play, that's great. It was a scary injury, but terrible how they ended that game doing the play call. But him playing's big too. I am worried with Washington, though, with how they ended that game. I don't like the fact they almost blew that game. I know mistakes can happen, but you can't have those type of mistakes in a big game. Like with Michigan, Alabama, those mistakes can just cost you games. You can't make mistakes. But to your point, Will, as well, Washington's defense did.
It's not horrible, Moose. Come on. They played well against Texas.
Their defense is not bad when healthy. It definitely showed improvement with all the guys being back, and they did enough to win. The defense really helped them win. They stopped them on the final drive. They found a way to get it done. Moose says Washington is elite on offense. Problem is Michigan number 2 pass defense. Penix will make some plays. It's a given. Penix won't throw more than 250, 300, maybe 2 touchdowns. Well, I mean, if Penix is held to that, Washington's losing.
Yeah.
But can they hold him to that? We don't know. The game hasn't been played. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, I think Michigan's a better team. I think Michigan, they are on a mission to get this done for Harbaugh, and we'll see if he stays. I guess I'm going to go with Washington, too. I'm going to go with Washington 31-28. I think Penix is going to throw enough yards, and I think that
I know it's bad, but they're healthy now. It doesn't matter what their rank is.
Washington has found a way to win all these games that they've played, and I think they're going to find a way to win again. I'm not super confident in it because these are two great teams. I wouldn't even be confident picking Michigan because both these teams are fantastic. But I'm going to go with Washington and pull it out. Kalen Deboer and Penix, they found a way to win all these games. And that offense is insane. Michigan's defense is going to play hard, slow them down some, but I don't know if they're going to be able to slow them down enough. And Michigan's offense, they struggled against Alabama. And I think that they could struggle some against Washington's defense as well a little bit. So I'm going to go with Washington. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below whether you think that Washington or Michigan will win the national championship game in 2024 and why. And what you think about me and WillND's pick for the national championship game this year. Follow me on Twitter as well. Link is in the description. And I'll see you next time.